So I'll get started. Hi,
Evening,
I'm Blair Warner, and I'll be hosting the National League Roundup today. Danny is indisposed at the minute, so we'll crack on and just go in without him, and quite the round of fixtures this week, we'll say. I think I've sorted that now, that echo. Quite the interesting round of fixtures this week. Some just shock results across the board. So, Wellington Olympic, Western Springs, really good game to watch. Very open, very end-to-end. It was very much like, I know something that Pep Guardiola goes on about is like when teams sit back, then it's boring when his teams play. But when both teams go out to play the game, you get a really good game. And that's what that was. Ryan McLeod scored an absolute screamer at the near post, rocketed into the roof of the net. Then the Western Springs keeper just caught on the ball, got his pockets picked, and 1-1 just before half time. And the whole game was just end to end, half chance here, half chance there. But Adam Supik just made the breakthrough late on in the game, and honestly, it would have been a win for either team, would have been more than fair. It was such a good game. Nothing but praise for those two teams, and they'll be in there at the end fighting it out if they can maintain this kind of form. Christchurch United, Miramar Rangers. I unfortunately didn't get the chance to sit down and watch this one, but from what I was told, there was a dodgy penalty at the end there, but it doesn't seem to have affected the result too much. But Christchurch United are possibly quietly putting together a little run for the grand final, despite scraping in by the skin of their teeth in the Southern League. They seem to really be building momentum this so far. And then, of course, the Kiwi Derby reserves went at it in what was a really good game. In most parts, there was sort of like that first 15 minutes where, of course, the two goals were scored to make it 1-1. It did die off a little bit that next half hour. There was the odd chance here and there, but, it was fine. Then the same thing happened in the second half. Half hour is a little bit dead, not a lot happened. Then eventually, from a break and play, Aston Burns won the ball, laid it off to James Mitchell, nailed it through for Aston Burns in the 1-2. Burns just shrugs off his man under the keeper's legs. Fantastic goal. And into the port, celebrating with all of us. It was such a great time. Fantastic time. And then the mind-boggling result of Western Suburbs 8, Coastal Spirit 0. I would have picked Coastal Spirit 9 times out of 10 to win this game. To be beaten in such a fashion by possibly one of the worst National League teams there is. There's not a lot to say. It was just sort of like, I was just sitting there watching it. I would just be like, oh yeah, this will be the last one for sure. I say as they go 7-0, 6-7, 8-0 down. Sebastian Barton Ginger, 2 absolutely incredible goals. Kalen Nguyen, of course, the National League Player of the Week, scoring 4. It'll be very interesting to see how Western Suburbs go next week, see whether they can maintain this form. And of course, Coastal Spirit, I believe, have a rather tough fixture coming up that could possibly even result in a similar scoreline if they play possibly even more if they play like they did. Western Suburbs just, wow. Birkenhead United 3-0 over Auckland City. They poached an early goal. Auckland City struggling to really get into the game, and Orlando Thorpe, Curtis Hughes gets on the break. Orlando Thorpe brings him down, and it is shown a straight red. They were very, very lucky not to go down to 9 men. Garriga, I believe, made a bit of a rough challenge, got a yellow card in about the 35th minute, and then 10 minutes into the second half, I believe it was an offside or something. Dino Bodica grabs the ball, places it down, steps back, preps to take the free kick, and Garriga just comes in, swipes his legs out from under him, and somehow does not get the second yellow. Don't know how he got away with that, and it could have been far worse for Auckland if he had been sent off, as they went on to score another couple of goals to really just wrap up that game for them with a tidy 3 points and a bit of light revenge for the grand final. Yeah. So overall, quite an interesting week of National League football. Leaves us with Christchurch United and Birkenhead top on goal differential. Wellington Olympic sneaking along behind, though I think with next week's fixture we could see them cruise to the top on goal differential. Western Suburbs, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the highest they've ever been. 3 points, highest goal differential in the league, probably for the first time ever as well. Above Western Springs, who beat them 3-0 last week. Miramar Rangers 6, Auckland FC Reserves jumped to 7 after Coastal Spirits loss. Auckland United 8th, Nix Reserves 9th, City 10th, and Coastal Spirit in 11th with a mind-boggling -9 goal differential. Just, yeah. Yeah, just, I'm still like about that result because it was just so out of nowhere. Yeah. Okay, anyway, on to next week's fixtures, and there's some good ones coming up. Miramar Rangers, Auckland United. Auckland United seem like they could be struggling. I'd hope with Jose Figueroa return. Pronunciation doesn't matter. I'd imagine with him returning, and having the bye, that they've hopefully turned a corner, and they might be able to get 3 points out of this. Miramar Rangers beat Auckland FC Reserves, beaten by Christchurch United, so a little bit flaky it seems at the moment. Real test for both teams coming up in that next one. Auckland City versus Western Suburbs. Couple of teams that will be looking to prove a point. Western Suburbs, sort of notorious for being towards the lower end of National League. Auckland City, the opposite. So both will be looking to, stake their place on finishing nice and high this season. City, they've just looked really flaky this year. The veil is starting to fall, and they are just not quite the team that they have been in previous years. Then following that, it's the what are we going to call this? Because technically Christchurch United aren't the ones that booted them out of the OPL now, so it's not really the OPL derby or anything. So, but yeah, I think with the Nix Reserves having players return for this fixture, you've got the likes potentially of Luke Brooks-Smith, Nathan Walker, Jaden Smith. All sorts of players could be available for this fixture. They could potentially put out a really strong team for this game. Noah Karunaratne, that whole Christchurch United team as a whole is moving with a lot more confidence than they were towards the end of that Southern League campaign. So it's going to be, I don't think it'll be as easy as other teams have found against the Nix Reserves now that those players have returned. And now, again, that could be a massive blowout if Coastal do not pull finger. They come up against Wellington Olympic, who are 15 games unbeaten now. Hamish Watson returns from his suspension, so that is a full-strength Olympic lineup that they'll be taking on. So they have to have their wits about them, otherwise that could be so much worse than the Western Suburbs game. That it could be a devastating fixture. And then Western Springs, Auckland FC Reserves, same thing. Auckland FC will see the return of Finn McKinley, Adama Koulibaly, Ollie Middleton, Cody Phoenix, which I don't think it strengthens the Auckland Reserves to the same level that the Knicks Reserves having their internationals come back will. But I think it just adds a little bit of extra X factor to that lineup that could hopefully make the difference against what is a very informed Springs team, despite their loss to Wellington Olympic. The fact that they were competing so closely just shows that, they're up for it this year. And, I could see Springs comfortably winning against pretty much everyone else in the league at the moment. And then, of course, Birkenhead have the bye. Give them a chance for Suski and Donkers to hopefully return from injury. So be a few tough fixtures here and a lot of points to prove when it comes to the National League and what teams can do. And what we'll do now is we'll move on to the big news of New Zealand football at the moment. South Island United. So essentially my understanding of this is that Christchurch United came in with the intent of not going into this competition as Christchurch United. The intent was always to go in and be a South Island team, which opens up a lot of possibilities for them and just gives them a lot of options when it comes to hosting, anything they want to do grassroots-wise. They're not going to be going into Dunedin as Christchurch United. They're going to be going in there as South Island United, It also opens up the possibility... Auckland is right there. They are working on their colours and logo and kit. I'd assume they're probably going to go with the white and black that they've sort of got going on in their branding currently. And I believe in the North versus South rugby, the South would wear white as well, which I think sort of, again, leans into that whole thing. But yeah, it will allow them at grassroots to be able to go to places like Dunedin, Nelson, and, place roots and, try and raise awareness for the footy. And it also opens up other places in the South Island as hubs rather than, just Christchurch. We could potentially have, a hub down in Dunedin at Forsyth Bar, get the uni students down in the zoo and whatnot. Maybe Trafalgar Park and Nelson, something interesting like that. And when it comes to their squad build, so where is it? Where's the quote? Hold on, I need to pull up the... So we are committed to first consider Southern League players for the OFC. Yeah, you're right. It'll be they'll put a wider net. We are committed to first consider Southern League players for the OFC Pro League, and will shortly organise trials to see which players are interested and who might be able to step up to professional football. So that'll be likely a partial reasoning as to why the likes of Derek Tiku and Noah Karinratne have made that move down south. UC Van Dam moving from Cash Tech to Christchurch, possibly to put himself, more into the eyes of South Island United scouts. But there's a few handy players floating around there. From then on, once the best South Island players are considered, the coach will look to the North Island. So will be interesting to see who they go for there, because there's a few very handy players floating around in both the Northern and Central leagues. Will we see a cheeky Hamish Watson, maybe a Jack Henry Sinclair, maybe a Maya Bevan, Dino Bodica. There's a few handy players floating around that could really, add a lot to that team. And of course, other OFC nations and abroad to strengthen the squad. So they will have 6 visa spots. Not 6 visa spots, 6 foreign spots. 3 OFC and 3 non-OFC. So you could potentially see a Mohamed Nabil of Birkenhead, the left back, or a Shivnir of Auckland FC reserves. Take on, fill out those OFC player slots. And the other 3, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of the J-League players in that group, as the J-League will be going on hold for 6 months. So you'd imagine there's probably a couple of players there that were interested in, keeping fit, maybe kick ball in a new league and get some minutes under their belt. So they could put together, and New Zealand football teams have a strong history with Japanese players. Ichimura, for example, who's just left Coastal Spirit for a club in Bhutan. And so they could put together a pretty competitive team. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. Rob Sherman, of course, appointed head coach. And other than that, there's not really much left. So I think I'll wrap it up there. And cheers for tuning in. And I will talk to you guys